GingerGM.
Hello, and another video, hallelujah. Well, I've been a bit busy. Hope you've been a bit busy or not. This video, I'll explain what I'm going to do, because it's going to be in like stages and you might not want to view everything. It might bore the hell out of you. Hope not. To start with, I'm just going to tell you what I've been up to the last couple of weeks, and I've got a video from the GingerGM Crypt event, which was a very interesting event which GingerGM held in a crypt only a couple of days ago now, when I've showed you and talked a little bit about that. And I'll put all the time codes in the description, so if you want to go straight to my analysis, you can avoid my chatting and go straight to my analysis of a game that I'm going to basically is the main sort of essence of this video. So after I've done that, I'm then going to talk about a tournament I played in Iceland. In this video, I did play another tournament, but I'm concentrating on Iceland, and I'm mainly concentrating. I'm just going to look at the last round I played there in Iceland, which was a very interesting game. I was white against Kveinys. Sorry, keep calling him Kveinys. Excuse me, pronunciations again. Who's Lithuanian, I think top player in Lithuania, Grandmaster. He's been about 25-50 ELO for a long time. You know, like tens of years, tens of thousands of years. Sorry, Kveinys. Very nice guy, and we're going to look at a very exciting and interesting game I had after that. So I'll put all the descriptions to that in the time codes in the descriptions below. Okay, so first of all, what have I been up to? Well, I played a weekend tournament. I didn't qualify for the British knockout competition, unfortunately. I did still get second equal, so I was half a point off qualifying. Gained some rating points, had some interesting games there. Then I went pretty much straight from there to Iceland to play the Northern Lights tournament. I love Iceland, one of my favourite places in the world. Amazing people, and had a lovely time there. But it was an incredibly hectic schedule, 2 games a day. Quite a lot of the games were going on late. I gained maybe 15 rating points there. Got about 25-50 rating performance. Let me show you the final cross table. So this is the final cross table from that event, and you can see I got second equal. A lot of underrated players in this tournament. It was really tough. The 2 Chinese kids there, you know, I mean, these guys, I mean, their rating there is not a true reflection of their strength. Add another 100 points at least. I mean, I think they're brothers, and I was looking at their games, and they only played in China. They haven't played abroad. I mean, this guy who won the tournament, he went straight from an unsort of rated player to Grandmaster. He didn't bother with, you know, getting the FIDE Master title or anything. He just went straight to Grandmaster. Blooming good player. And you can see I had a pretty decent tournament there. Trying to get my rating back up at the moment. Seems like my chess may be on the increase. So we did that, and then I had a day's rest, and then the infamous, the famous, hopefully the annual GingerGM Crypt tournament. And blooming heck, this was really hard work to arrange. I mean, amount of time myself, girlfriend, friends, people put into getting this to work was excessive. Loads of names I should thank, you know, so I know some names don't want to be thanked. They want to be a little bit in the shadows. I was born in the dark, I remain in the dark. Was that Bane from Batman? Bloody good character. But I've got to thank everyone who turned up and everyone who helped out there. And you know who you are. Neville for running the tournament, Olivia for helping run it, Matt, chess boxing, Matt Reed for help running it. I'm going to forget so many names, but there's so many people, and I've got a short video of a free 4-minute video which I'm going to play now. So again, you can skip to my analysis, but if you're interested to know how the event went, I'm going to play this video in a minute. I must also thank special people who follow my YouTube channel, who've been supporting me on Twitch when I stream, who were able to make it. So God, let's hope I get the names right. Russell, thank you for coming. Morton, thank you for coming. Oddbjorn, thank you for coming. 3 of the main guys there who have helped, you know, make this channel what it is and help support me for my streaming and really give me the incentive to do things like this. It did cost us a lot of money, you know, but hey ho, you know, some of the money I make from doing things, I'm not that capitalist. Let's put it back into having some fun and giving back to the chess world. I'm going to do some more sales things tomorrow because I've got another Master Method course come out, so you have to be ready for that one. But it was great to meet some of the YouTubers and some people who do watch my videos. There's such nice people. Also, how did I forget Stefan? Stefan from Austria was there. Christoph, who does the intro, was there. The crazy DJ. Oh my God, he was a lot of fun, I'll tell you that. It was epic. And right, let me just show you a little video I took. This is before the shit hit the fan. This is before it really kicked off as well. It kicked off after this video. This was just the start of the night. Okay, so let me play it now and sit back and enjoy. Like I said, if you don't want to watch this, if you're here for the game, you know, just jump forwards to the time code. Okay, but let me show you the crypt. Well, here we are in the crypt, and I'm going to show you a little tour of the crypt, the Blitz event of the century. Very empty here. This is the chill out zone before we go back into the action zone. I'm going to walk you through it, and we're going to go down another little area here. There's a sailor. There's a sailor. It's a sailor on the way, and we have a vampire. So let everyone know who you are. Who do we have here? Please
here
roll.
We have the Twitch corner.
Oh, we have the... And
Did you just see that move?
that was an amazing move. Oh my God. We got that. Just call yourself Gary Kasparov. Okay, so we now have...
Stefan.
Stefan, okay, great stuff.
Hey, you want to come through here? Come through here.
I've got to say hello to camera.
Come through here.
Well,
Look at this,
Hey, quick hello to the camera. Yeah, okay, good.
Simon, David Spielman versus...
What on earth is happening here? You've got a monkey in a cage playing one of the world champion quarter-finalists. So, Dave, how do you feel about your chances, or should I call you Monkey? So,
He's exchange up. He's exchange up.
Go on, Dave. I'm moving on from there. It's too weird. It's too weird. And we have over here, okay, we have one of our lovely camera crew here. So who went to bed at a nice sensible time last night, and good stuff. Some serious chess there. We won't disturb them. And we move out into more chess playing venue. You can see the little entrance there. And we're going around, and some very good old friends here. Some of my oldest friends in the tournament from Brighton. Introduce yourself, guys.
I'm Danny. Hello.
And how are you finding it? All good? Yeah.
Well, it's a special experience. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you very much.
It's all going to be good, man. So a little tour. And then we have Malcolm. No cameras. Sorry, mate. I could delete that one. So, then we have, okay, our Icelandic man, the Puffin, Ingvar versus Richard Bates, the Destroyer. And, well, we'll move on from that one, so very quickly. There is Luigi. Say hello, Luigi.
Mamma mia.
And hello, Jonathan Payne. So, good stuff. And now we go to the little chill-out room, where we have the world-famous outright chess guys. The one and only, and in the middle, Macaulay. The one and only Macaulay. So, say hello.
What's up?
What's up? Okay, and then this is the little chill out area. So we have our normal looking DJ over here, and this is the lovely Lynn. Hello, Lynn. And we have okay, sensible stuff going on here. No idea what's happening here, but say hello. Here's Ed.
It's your talking.
Grandma's only DJ. Say hello, DJ. And then chess boxing extraordinaire Matt there. Chris Duncan, what are you doing here? How do they let you in? So, yeah. Okay, and we go back again, and that is basically what the hell is going on here. I don't know what's going on, but it's all a bit mad. So, over and out. Okay, well, hopefully that gave you a little feel for the event. Like I said, that was actually earlier on in the event, and more people turned up, and it got more crazy and out of control as the event went on. There's plenty of stories. maybe I'll tell you another time. Let's just say it was fun. Now, I hope to do this next year. And like I say, those of you who, have helped me out, I'm going to try to open it up to more YouTube followers, more you guys who've helped me, who have supported me. If you fancy, we'll try to do it in London again next year if you guys want to come along. I mean, it was all a bit last minute. It was space restricted. I wanted to invite more of you. Didn't get around to doing it. I was very busy, but next year hopefully I'll open it up to more of you guys. We'll try to keep it invite only, but it was so much fun. And if you ask Morton, Oddbjorn, Blazer Rowe, I'm sure they'll say the same. And I'm not going to tell you everything that happened there because some of it was out of control. Okay, right. Anyway, so let's now get on to some game analysis. Now, this video is going to be a bit longer than my other videos, so I expect some of you have probably already logged off, so there's no point talking to you anyway. But the actual game here I'm about to show you, it was, well, a lot of people saying it was an amazingly brilliant, great game. Thank you for saying that. It was a good game. It was certainly very exciting. It was certainly very interesting. People even were saying such nice things. It was a candidate for Game of the Year. I don't believe that, because there was one moment in the game which spoiled it, which is a real shame. There was one moment where both me and my opponent had a complete oversight, a moment of blindness, when my opponent could have won the game, which spoils really a bit of the artistic effect of the game. But apart from that, if I'm going to leave the computer on, but I'm going to explain things and just have the computer running. I mean, maybe the computer's going to distort your way of thinking here, because it was such a complex game. Humans will not be able to work this game out. I mean, there's only a couple of humans in the world who will be able to, understand all these variations. I couldn't, my opponent couldn't. It's just too much for a human, and that's the way I play chess. I try to do what Macau Tao said, and that's make 2 + 2 = 5. Take your opponent into a dark forest and out-calculate him or out-confuse him in the chaotic world of the GingerGM. And that's kind of, this game sums up my play. Now, my opponent, I'll bring up a photo after the game. I had to buy him a couple of beers to cheer him up, but nothing wrong with that. And, well, it is if it's Iceland, because it's blooming expensive. My opponent was a really good sport. Very strong. Like I say, he's 25-50 player, but I had to win this game to get a prize, so that's why I took some risks, and that's why I turned down a draw at a critical moment. Now, I'm just going to show you a photo of us after the last game, after a couple of beverages indeed. I will try to tell you some of the names here. Okay, in the back we have Torbjörn Hansen, a very good old friend of me. You probably see me holding a beer next to Exhibit, the one and only Invar. Then we have Brei Torfinsen, international master. We have Ingi. We have at the front there Kveinys. If I said that right, we call him Big Al. My opponent here. At the back, Gunnar, who runs the chess, and let's just leave it there because there's a lot of names, and I like to, really lovely people, the Icelanders. And this is at the venue, just after the prize giving. We're doing kind of weird little selfie kind of, whatever there. Okay. On to the game. So I had white, and the game started with d4, and now I actually did a bit of preparation the night before, or in the morning I think it was, and I saw that my opponent had been recently playing this system with e6, and now I normally always prefer knight to f3 here. This is my main opening. My main opening is d4, starting with d4 and c4. This is what I'm most used to playing. I know I've been playing a lot of the London system, but I've kind of now, I do play the London system, but this is my main opening, and the repertoire that I play here is based from my Killer D4 DVD. Now, knight to c3 is a move I've never really played. This goes into the Nimzo Indian. It allows the knight to be pinned. The way I always play this position is by moving the knight to f3 in the so-called Queen's Indian. Because now, if there's a check here, you don't have to go knight to c3, but instead I like put my knight on d2 here, avoiding a bishop takes c3 when my pawns become doubled. So knight to f3, and now my opponent plays d5, this move, and this move goes back into the Queen's Gambit, because when you have this set up with the pawns here, it's really what we call a Queen's Gambit. Don't worry about the names. I don't even know names of all openings. It's the ideas. But my opponent has played quite a crafty move order, because my knight on f3 generally, let's just compare the move order. If I go d4 and we do it this way around, and now knight c3 and now knight to f6, well, the difference here is my knight is still on g1, and that gives me a very good option here of taking on d5 and playing bishop to g5. Sorry, I'm just going to open the window. And the idea of this is that my knight can often come to e2 later on. Garry Kasparov made this setup very popular. For example, this kind of setup, I'm just going to play the moves very quickly. And in this position, Garry Kasparov liked putting the knight on e2, because this was found to be a better square. And this is why this little development setup and the move order here, very, very subtle, very high level but this is why black plays it this way around, because now my knight can't come to e2. So I play knight c3 and now c5. Actually, I think the first time I've ever faced this move, but a very popular move now at top level. It's becoming very popular with the likes of, I think Kramnik's been playing this. I mean, loads of top players are doing this move now. And again, do not get carried away with a computer assessment. Just, you can have it there. I'm going to leave it on, but you can just blank it out, because that's not the important thing about this game. Now, when I was preparing for this, I saw the main lines to take on d5, and now knight takes d5 is this popular line nowadays called the semi-Tarrasch. And most people here play e4. And famous game that you should look at is the game Polgorski versus Mikhail Tau, where Polgorski defeated Tau in a brilliant way with this move e4. But my opponent is very well prepared against this move. The main line here runs knight takes knight, pawn takes pawn, bishop here check, and you get this kind of structure, which should be a little bit better for white. But a number of pieces have been exchanged, and my opponent is very, very well prepared in this position, and I wanted something a bit more dynamic. So the move I played was e3, and here I'm going for the isolated pawn position. And this is something I've studied a lot recently. I've just finished a course, my second master method, which will be on sale tomorrow. It's going to be on sale for GingerGM at half price for 4 or 5 days. And one of the things I really studied there was the isolated pawn position. I teach you how to play it, how to attack with it, how to get it, everything you need to know. And I thought, well, I've been studying this and I'm a man of my word. If I'm going to recommend it to you, I'm going to play it myself. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a position where my opponent takes here, I take back, and we get this pawn structure, which I've been studying in depth recently. So that's what I'm aiming for. So e3 played, and now knight to c6. And here I play bishop to d3. This is the best square for the bishop. It's aiming at my opponent's king. Bishop to e7. My opponent being quite crafty here. He's not taking on d4 straight away. There's a reason for that. I castle. My opponent now castles. And here, I might want to play a move like rook to e1. But it doesn't make so much sense when I have a pawn in the way of that rook. It's a bit illogical. Another move I might want to play here is something like queen c2. But my opponent had a game here where knight b4 was played, and he was very well prepared in this kind of thing where white has to sacrifice a piece now, and he came to the conclusion this is okay for black. The move I played, a3, is just stopping a knight coming to b4, and I'm really waiting for my opponent to take on d4, so I get the position I want to get. And that's the key. One of my key rules in chess development is, look, you guys, girls at home who are watching this, when you're playing chess, know what you want in the middle game. Know the kind of position you want to get when you play move 1. in the middle game. Know what pawn structure you want to get in the middle game. It's not the opening that's important, it's the middle game, and that's what my latest course really tries to teach you. For example, here, after pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, I'm happy, also my opponent is, he's very experienced in this position, but this is the position I want. I wanted the isolated pawn. I knew the plans I'm supposed to do here. I know my opponent's plans. I knew the middle game ideas. I knew what I'm trying to do, what my opponent's trying to do, why we're trying to do it, what we're trying to achieve. And that's how you become a better player. You need to know what you're aiming to do in the middle game when you play move 1. And this is, again, something which you need to learn, and it's something a lot of people don't know about. My opponent now played the best move, bishop f6. The bishop comes to defend the king, pressurize the d4 pawn, and now bishop c2, the Thioni attack. I'm aiming to bring my queen to d3 and checkmate on h7. Knight on c to e7, another very good move. The knight comes over to the king side to defend the king. And now it's time, as you can see above me, for Harry Man to come in. h4, a typical idea in this position. Why? Why is h4 a good idea? Because I probably want to play queen d3 at some point. This is the idea of checkmating, double power towards h7. And after, let's say, g6, which I consider the best move, I'm not going to look at the computer's knight g6. I consider that stupid. How do I ever break through? And the whole point of my play is to attack my opponent's king. That's why I picked this. That's what the isolated pawn is all about. How do I do that? Well, I need to break through this solid formation. We don't do that. That's not a very good move. Of the pawn on g6. So I need to go something like h4, h5, and loosen up that square. That's why I played h4 here. I'm getting ready just to do that. And also, it does give me this nice square on g5 for my pieces to hold. Actually, this position was still in my preparation in the morning, so you can see how deeply we prepare nowadays at this level. g6, and I was out of my prep now. I didn't look at g6. But I just thought, right, okay, what I'm going to do here, well, my idea here was to play, okay, I've developed, I'm going to put my pieces on the best squares. Once I put my pieces on the best squares, I'm going to look at ways to attack my opponent's king and create threats against my opponent's king. And then I'm going to look for tactics to break through and try to just checkmate him. Simple sort of idea which I had here. So what pieces can I move to better squares? Well, rook e1. This rook moves on a half-open file, and it increases a bit of pressure against my opponent's kingside pawn formation. Very standard idea in this position. This is what I mean about middle games. When you know middle game ideas, you will outplay your opponent in the majority of times. Not here so much, because my opponent is one of the best experienced players in this kind of position. He is so well, he's more experienced than me. He knows more about these positions than me, and that actually showed. My opponent now, he wants to develop his last piece. Very logical play. Bishop d7. I'm thinking how I can improve my pieces. My knight on c3, I bring it towards the king side, and I aim to eliminate one of my opponent's pieces that's defending his king. This is quite an important piece for my opponent, the dark square bishop, because all of his pawns are on light squares. What does that mean? You should know by now. That means that his dark squares are weakened. So if I can get rid of the defender of the dark squares, his bishop, then my attack will certainly prove to be extremely dangerous, minimum. So he moves that bishop away. And now I continue with my plan, h5. Harry is coming into the game. Harry. And I'm just trying to loosen his king position, try to force my way through. My opponent plays bishop c6, and here I had my first long think of the game. Up to this point, everything had been played quite logically. I saw a very interesting and a very forcing plan here. Now, generally, the way I play chess, it's not so subtle. I'm not the kind of subtle guy who's going to beat around the bush. Sometimes you have to be, but generally, I see the king and I try to rip its head off. And I saw a way in this position which I could get an attack going. And I calculated, let's see, it's move 15, that up to the next 5 moves, up to my opponent's king g7 move. And I thought this is quite a forcing variation. I probably spent 20 minutes here. And what I was thinking here is, this is the way I'm actually thinking at this moment. Imagine you're white. This is how I was thinking. I want you, rather than look at the computer's assessment, try to get into my head, I'm going to tell you my thoughts. Is the way I was thinking here is, right, well, how do I increase the pressure against this king? Okay, well, I've moved my minor pieces to pretty decent squares. I could consider bishop g5 here, you know, but I don't even know if that's needed, because my bishop is okay on c1 at the moment. I think I'm going to need to bring my queen over to really create serious threats. And then I was thinking, right, well, h7 is a target, and I love the g5 square, this square here that I've highlighted. I want to, if I can maybe put a knight on g5 and then transfer my queen over, let's say, to the h file, so one of these two highlighted squares, I'm going to try to blast down on h7. And this is where knowledge of other middle game positions helps me. I've played the Dutch defense, as I'm sure you're aware, all my life. And in the Dutch, you aim to attack your opponent, the same square, this square here with your queen and your knight. And this is what I was aiming for here. So this is how I came up with the plan. Now, how do I get my queen in the game? I need to move the knight that's blocking it. Well, I first took on g6 because that weakens my opponent's king. And now I just continued with knight g5 because I have a very simple plan. And you should always have a plan. Even if it's not the best plan, make sure you have a plan. And if the plan is checkmate, that's a blooming good plan. My plan is queen g4, queen h4, queen h7, checkmate. Easy plan. And this is what makes life very difficult for my opponent. Even though my opponent can defend this position, I'm already coming straight at him like Mike Tyson. And, you know, even Mike Tyson may not have been the best boxer in the world. He was incredible. No one wanted to fight him because he was scary. And that's the case here. Now, I think my opponent played the best move here. He played knight to f6. Now, knight to f5 was the other move I considered. And the computer may say that this position is okay for black. But my opinion is that it's very, very difficult. I was going to continue with my plan. I don't care about pawns. Let's say knight takes d4. And now just queen to h3. And this position, with this move coming in, is forcing. There's only one move my opponent can play, rook to e8. And by the way, I had calculated all this before I played this line. You have to calculate deeply. And now I was thinking in the game, and it may have been right or wrong, of a check, king to f8, and here I was looking at stuff where knight takes f7. This was one of my main ideas here. And I looked at some lines and I came to the conclusion, look, I don't know, I haven't even looked at what the computer says because I didn't have that during the game, but my instinct told me that this kind of idea with the knight coming in, with my queen getting into the position, with my bishops coming in, it is very dangerous for black. And of course, if I get to this actual situation in the game, I can think again about knight takes f7. So we don't, grandmasters don't see 100 moves ahead, but they see little sequences of moves. And when they get to it, they can rethink. So knight takes f7 is a move here, but I've got other options here. For one pawn, this is exactly what I want. So I think after knight on f to g5, my opponent saw this variation, and he decided that knight to f6, the move he played, was a much better idea. And I think this is a great move because he's trying to eliminate some of my attacking pieces. He's also trying to make it a little bit hard for my queen to join in the attack. Now, queen to f3 was an option, but I had foreseen this position and I continue with my plan. Knight takes f6 and queen to g4. And the only thing I needed to calculate before playing this was the consequences of queen takes d4. And what I had calculated, I'm just going to check my analysis here, because that's the only way my opponent can win a pawn, is after queen takes d4, I was planning to play queen to h3, threatening this checkmate when my opponent only has one move. Bishop takes g5, and after bishop takes g5, again I eliminate that key defender of my opponent's position, the bishop, the dark square bishop. I eliminate that bishop which was defending his king. And now I looked at rook to f8, rook on f to e8, because I am a pawn down here, so I've got to make sure I have enough compensation, otherwise I'm not going to sacrifice. And here I was actually planning, I wasn't planning rook takes e6. Wow, that's an amazing idea. But what I was considering was a more human move, and that was to bring my last piece into the game. Again, it's very logical. If I can't do anything with my developed pieces, and I couldn't see any way I could use my bishop, my queen, maybe the computer's saying I can actually use my rook here. But what I was looking at was simply rook to d1, because this brings in my last piece. And now there was two lines I considered here, either queen to h8 or queen takes b2. Now, if queen to h8, my opponent is aiming to exchange queens, I can now take advantage of his dark squares. I think I was planning queen takes queen, king takes, bishop f6 check, king to g8, and now a typical idea, rook to e3, with the idea of just putting my rook on h8 and giving checkmate. And, well, it's funny how the computer has changed its mind. Look, even the computer can't work out the position, because only a move or so ago it said that queen to h8 was okay for black, but now we can see white is doing, well, winning here, I would imagine. And the only other line I worked out was if queen takes b2. Let's see, because it says here queen takes b2 is okay for black. Let's see if it changes its mind. I was looking at queen to h4 here. And the point of my play is that the queen on d4 was previously stopping my idea of queen to h4. Look at that. Unbelievably, the computer is blooming wrong. It's changed its mind again. Now it realizes that white is completely winning. Very simple. And this is the human instinct here is actually better than the computer instinct. And I'm just playing very logical. I want to get this mating idea of bishop and queen. How do I force that? I get my queen here, and let's say queen takes c2, bishop to f6, and it's checkmate. And I know this game's very complex, so if you can't follow everything, don't worry. It's one of the more complicated games that I've shown. But I think it's also quite artistic at times, and you know, I'm not going to claim it's the best game I've ever played, but it was a hell of a lot of fun to win. So there you go. So my calculation proves to be better than Stockfish's initial thoughts. So when I was analysing this whole thing with queen g4, I thought queen takes d4 was not possible. The reason I'm spending so long on this game is I'm just going through all the thoughts that were happening in my mind when I'm playing it. I thought that the only thing my opponent could do here was to try to get his rook to h8. And king to g7 is where I finished my initial analysis. And when I finished my initial analysis, basically instinctively told me that white should have something on e6 here, but I couldn't. When I originally went for this line, I couldn't calculate any further. So now I had my second big think of the game, and I spent ages here, maybe 40 minutes, leaving myself with 10 minutes to make 20 moves, which was maybe not wise. Now what I was thinking here was, okay, let's go through it in stages. I was thinking, first of all, I can't really move my queen to h4 or h3, because then he goes rook to h8. Queen h4, rook to h8, and that kind of stops all my plans. That's why I went king to g7. Originally, I was trying to make something work on e6. In such a complex position, how should you think? You should go for your gut instinct first. You should calculate it as deeply as you possibly can. If you think it's good, you should double check your calculations, and then you should triple check it. Make sure you consider all your opponent's best defenses, even quadruple check it in such a complex position. If you can't find a good line for yourself, eliminate that line for your calculation and look at your another option and do the same with that. So now I'm going to go through my thought process, what I was doing before I made the move here, because this is what you guys need to do to become better attacking players. Well, my initial thought was knight takes e6. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, because I'm blasting through, I'm getting my rook in the game, and I'm making a weakness on g6. My opponent has to take, and here rook takes e6 with ideas of maybe going rook takes, my main idea here is actually bishop to h6 and rook takes e7. This is what I saw in the game. For example, let's say my opponent plays a stupid move like rook to c8. Well, I was thinking after rook to c8, which is a nonsense move, I was going to play, and yeah, well, rook takes e7 might be winning, but the move I was going to play, rook takes e7, the problem with this move is it allows my opponent's queen to come and help the defense. So this may, as the computer's indicated, been winning. I'm just demonstrating a silly line. But we can also see this is not also so clear when my opponent's queen in some lines can come across and defend. So my general idea here, I mean, rook c8 is a bad move. My general idea was to first play this amazing idea, bishop h6 check. The point is, if my opponent takes here, now I take on e7, and the difference is my opponent's king is in a worse position. So I'm basically checkmating him here. If he takes my rook, his king can't run away. This is now checkmate. That's the subtle difference. How did I find this idea of bishop h6 during my analysis? Well, I found it because I realized my opponent's king can run away, and I'm looking at bringing another piece into the attack and trying to move my opponent's king to a worse square. That's how I found it. Not too hard. The line that put me off this was, in actual fact, a drawing line. I saw a line that my opponent had that I thought was a forcing drawing line, and I thought, well, I can't have a draw in this game. So I picked it, and the forcing drawing line I saw was bishop to d7, pinning my rook to my queen. Now here, I didn't see anything better than taking on e7, because he's going to eliminate all my attacking pieces otherwise. And I saw rook takes e7 check, queen takes e7. My queen is on pre, my next move is forced. Queen takes g6, I'm a whole rook down here. King to h8. And now I just don't have enough pieces in the attack. Normally you need 3 pieces in the attack to win. I've really only got 2, but my opponent has very good defensive pieces, especially the queen. The draw I saw was queen h6 check here, and now bishop b3 check, bishop e6, bishop takes bishop here, and now queen to g6 check. And the point is my opponent can never block with the bishop because I win his queen. So this I saw was a draw. And I didn't see, I double checked this line. So if we go back, and this is how my mind was thinking during the course of this game, I double checked this line, and I came to the conclusion, this is why I spent so much time, that knight takes e6 was no more than a draw here. And this was forcing, I didn't look at any other moves, so I eliminated knight takes e6 from my thoughts. But then I really was so close in the game to playing rook takes e6. Rook takes e6, I nearly played it. I nearly moved my hand and played it, because this is a crazy move. Maybe it's the best move, and maybe I should have played it. Now, what do I have to analyze here? Well, let's go through what I did again, the process of elimination. First of all, what happens if my opponent takes the rook? Variation number 1, knight takes e6, I win the queen, I win the game. So we can eliminate pawn takes rook from the calculations. What next do I calculate? Well, the next line I was calculating was, well, let's say he eliminates the knight, one of my key attacking pieces. Bishop takes knight. Try not to look at the computer here. It's much more fun not to look at the computer. And now I obviously take with a bishop, bring in a piece into the attack. Pawn takes rook. And for a long time here, I was only considering moves such as bishop takes e7. I couldn't get them to work. And I then eliminated those moves from my thought. And then it occurred to me that in this position, I actually had the quiet move, and this is unbelievable because I'm a whole rook down, of playing rook to e1. And this spectacular move. I think it's spectacular because it brings the last piece into the attack. It's a very quiet move. I analysed was completely winning because all of my pieces are attacking. My opponent's king is too weak, and I'm simply threatening a number of things. My main threat is to take the knight, take on g6, and swing the rook to h3. For example, let's demonstrate that. Let's say bishop to d5 to defend e6, and now I eliminate the knight. I now take on g6 like the other line, and now I can bring my third piece into the attack. Remember how important I said it was to bring the third piece in? Well, now this is the third piece. My rook can come in, and this is now completely winning for me. It's going to be checkmate. This was the key important thing to remember, bringing that rook into the attack. God, this is a long game to analyze. So I saw this line, and after rook e1 I double checked it, I triple checked it, I came to the conclusion black was losing. So then I was getting very excited. I thought, right, well, rook takes e6, rook takes e6 must be winning. But here my time was going down. Actually, I may have even had less than 10 minutes, but I could not find a solution to bishop d7. I fought for absolutely ages here, and I saw one idea which you can see I use later on. The only idea I could see here was to try and play a move such as queen to h3, threatening checkmate, and I have to calculate bishop takes g5 and rook h8. There's only two moves. Bishop takes g5, I calculated was winning for me after something like, again, the dark squares. Check, bishop f6, the same idea. I eliminate that dark square bishop. I give this same pattern of checkmate. And the only other thing I had to calculate here was rook to h8, but I could not find a satisfactory answer for this. Now, the only line I could find at the time, and I missed this amazing knight to f7 move, which the computer's pointing out now. The only line I could find here was rook takes f6. And this may have just been playable, but I looked at some lines in this position, too hard for a human to work out, and I kind of came to the conclusion that I wasn't quite satisfied with my attacking possibilities here. But maybe, as the computer says, I have this unbelievable move, knight takes f7 now. But I did not see this in the game. This is one line I did not see. So I can't play this move if I didn't see it. So I had to then go back to the position, and you can see again my time is ticking, and I had to go back to another idea. And the only other idea I could think of here, because I don't have an immediate win, and this is my philosophy, if you don't have an immediate win, bring in more pieces to your attack. So now I played bishop to f4. And this brings another piece in, and maybe even my rook into the game. My opponent now played queen takes d4 and offered a draw. And it was quite funny afterwards. Big Al, as we call him, said that the reason he offered a draw here was that he was told as a kid a long time ago that if you can't see a good move for your opponent, you've probably missed something, so you should offer a draw, which I quite like. But I responded with this move by the rather crazy move, rook takes e6, but I missed something here. But I only had about 5 minutes on my clock here. The game continued now. Again, we've looked at some numerous lines here. My opponent played what I think is one of the best moves, queen takes b2, and now I brought my last piece into the attack, rook to e1. Every single white piece is attacking now. And what is even the computer's struggling to work out immediately. But the point here is what can my opponent play? Well, if he goes queen takes c2, I was planning rook takes f6. This is a key idea. And if he takes that, bishop to e5 is checkmate. So I thought this position after rook takes f6 would be okay. I thought he had to play bishop to d7 here, which he did. If he takes on f6, I thought this was dangerous for him, but it might not be any more than a draw in the cold, hard light of day. But again, I was just going to continue with knight takes e6, and now knight takes f8 here, actually. And I was going to play something with bishop h6 here. And I thought this position, with my queen coming into e6, was just very unclear. And I thought, it may be no more than a draw, but there's a lot of play here and stuff. But this is what I want. I'm attacking him. It's messy. So my opponent played the best move, bishop to d7. And now this is where we both had an unbelievable oversight here. We've both been so transfixed on the fact that rook h8 is the only answer to queen h3. After I played the move queen to h3, we both missed that now bishop takes g5 is just winning. And this is the one moment of the game which spoils, in my eyes, the scientific aspect of it, because my opponent had a win here if he'd have simply played bishop takes g5, and we both overlooked this. I mean, I had 4 minutes left, but we both just completely overlooked this. And the problem is, if I try to win his queen with bishop e5, he gets too many pieces. He takes here, and he takes on e6, and he's got too many pieces here. He's just got way too many pieces for the queen. This position is going to be losing for me. There's nothing I can do here. And if I take on g5 with the bishop, well, then he just goes actually f takes, and his king can run away. And again, it's immensely complex here, but the computer, as we can see, shows us that black is just simply winning. So the one thing that destroyed this game from being a contender of one of my best games was that we both missed this bishop takes g5. But in such a hard game, things will be missed, and the pressure's on him. He did a typical blunder. He blitzed out a move in his opponent's time trouble, and this was a major blunder. He played a move quickly in his opponent's time trouble, and this rook h8 move was a mistake, because now it allows this amazing idea of rook takes f6, which we looked at earlier. So this is how I came to see this idea, and now my opponent must have missed this move. He sunk into a very deep, quite a deep think, and he clearly had not seen this idea. Now, again, when I saw this in advance, there was a couple of variations I need to look at. One was bishop takes queen, and the other was queen takes rook. Now, if my opponent plays queen takes rook, I would have played queen takes d7, and now I have two bishops for the rook, which is a very good basically deal. And I only had to calculate the most forcing line, queen takes f4, and now I go queen takes e7, and this is the best move because it threatens knight to e6 check. So let's say rook to e8 here. Well, this just falls into knight to e6 check, and I'm gonna win serious material. And after this move here, there's nothing my opponent can play. If queen h2 check, I'm actually quite safe here. King to h1, I'm threatening a nasty check on f7, and if he checks on h1 and tries to pin my queen, well, in this position I have knight to e6 check, and that unpins me, and I'm actually mating him here and winning a queen at the same time. So that was one variation I had to look at, when I played this idea. And the other variation was what I saw in the game. And what I saw in the game was bishop takes h3. And the whole point of my idea is rook takes f7 check. When I thought my opponent has to go backwards, I thought, if he steps into the discovered check, there's going to be a mate, and there is a mate here. I won't go into it now, but there's a very beautiful mate here. And I came to the conclusion here, and remember I only had about 3-4 minutes left, that I should be doing well. Now the computer indicates that rook takes e7 is correct. In advance I had seen that I want to generally play my other rook to e7, but if I take this now, I'm giving myself problems with my own king. I mean, this looks tremendously good for me because all my, I've got so many pieces attacking his king, but tactically I've weakened my back rank, and my opponent can go queen to a1 check, and now I have to go king to h2, and now he has a discovered check, bishop to e6 check, and here I'm losing the game. So I saw this in the game, and I thought, well, actually, if I just go pawn takes bishop here, I'm now threatening this move because my king now has 2 more escape squares. And I saw the line in the game, and I also saw that I have ideas of bishop e5, and I thought this is very good for me. the computer indicates that black can draw here, but yet again, turn your computer off. If you imagine you're only looking at the board here, if you're only looking at the board, and you can grab a window and stick it over the analysis of the computer if you're sick of it, how would you find a defense to bishop e5 here? The only line I saw, well, I saw two lines. If queen takes c2, I saw rook takes e7, and I just thought this is undefendable. I have rook g7 and knight e6 checkmate coming up. This looks undefendable to me, but the computer finds some very strange and complex draw here, but only the computer finds this draw. My opponent in the end went knight to c6, and this is a much more human move, stopping bishop to e5. And now I go back to the principles. What do I do? If I don't have an immediate win with the pieces that are active, what are my most active pieces? These guys. If I can't use them, I should bring in my reinforcement, this guy here. Now, I couldn't see anything with the pieces I highlighted first. I don't really have any checks. My opponent is defending my bishop coming into e5. My opponent is defending my rook coming to e7. So I was only considering my bishop here. Bishop takes g6 is pointless. It's absolutely pointless, I thought, because my bishop, it wins a pawn, but I'm not going for a pawn, I'm going for checkmate. What I need to do is get my bishop checking my opponent's king. I need to get my bishop on this diagonal, on, let's see if I can highlight that, on this diagonal. So I played bishop to e4, and this is the correct move. My bishop is coming to d5, and my bishops are dominating my opponent's position now. And from this moment on, I think it's actually winning for white. No matter what the computer says, I don't think black can defend this. I mean, I'll be amazed if black can defend. My opponent was considering rook to d8 here, he said afterwards, but then he realized I still play bishop to d5. And the point here is this rook does not stop it. Rook takes bishop, and we have back rank checkmate now, as I hope it's clear to see. And after bishop to e4, rook to e8 was played, and now I just have to get my bishop to this square with check. So I need to move my rook out the way. Rook to d7, and now it's really the end of the game. My bishops are coming in to these two squares. My piece is dominating my opponent's king, and defense is impossible. He tried rook to e7. My bishop comes in. He tried king to f8, and my other bishop comes in. The power of the bishops. Pinning and winning. He tried queen to f6, and here I only had a minute on my clock. I had to find one more accurate move. I'll be honest here, I nearly played f4 here, because again, it's such a complex position. The way I was thinking, I wanted to try to force checkmate here, but I couldn't see any way to do it. I thought if I bring my knight in check, he just goes king e8, and now he's actually threatening my rook. It's one of those positions where all of a sudden I can be worse if I'm not careful. So I want to do that, and I thought, right, my time is running down. You know how I get when I'm short of time. I thought if I take on e7 here, well, I couldn't see a good move. Just knight takes e7. What do I do now? Ugh. So of course I'm trying to win. I nearly played f4 here, which would have spoiled the game so badly. Luckily, I saw just in the nick of time that he has queen d4 check, winning my bishop. Just in the nick of time. But then I saw the winning idea was simply knight to e4. And the point of this move is, whatever he does, I eliminate the knight on c6, and then I eliminate the rook on e7, and I'm going to win all the material in the world. For example, queen h4, bishop takes c6, I get rid of the defender of e7, and now, well, it is game over. He went rook h7. I've got a lot of ways to win. My time's a bit short, so I just released my rook on e1 by moving my knight out the way. And now, well, I'm going to take here, and hopefully you can all see that this position, my opponent's run out of tricks. Even though I've only got a minute on the clock, we're getting 30 seconds to move, and there's nothing my opponent can do here, so my opponent resigned. Now, I know maybe I shouldn't spend so long analysing these games. That's probably why I don't catch more followers, but you know, I just find that game so fascinating that, you know, I'm such a lover of ideas in chess and analysis that I have to make things long, even though it probably hinders me catching more viewers and more people to my channel. But hey ho, that game I think is one game that probably does need to have the deeper analysis attached to it, and I hope I didn't lose too many people doing that. Okay, well, thank you for if you're still here, thank you for going through all that with me. Interesting, I think, is the right word, that game, and yeah, it was a good reason to go and spend too much money on Icelandic beer afterwards, that game, I think. And I even won some prize money. I even won, I think, nearly 400 euros for coming second equal, which is a nice bonus anyway. I'm going to try to do a couple more videos. I'm doing, I think, a webinar tomorrow, and I'm releasing my iChess second course on GingerGM at half price for a week tomorrow. So I'll be pushing that a little bit in future videos. So I've got to try to make some money now after going to Iceland and running the crypt party. Got to pay the rent. So hopefully some of you will buy that course, which in return will hopefully help you play games like this, because it does concentrate on isolated pawns, how to use isolated pawns, and everything about them basically. And that's really the preparation for this course. Helped me win